very warm good morning to one and all. As we gather here at the auspicious confluence of minds and ideas, I'm reminded of a Sanskrit sloka, Ano Bhadraha Kritavo Yantu Vishwata, which means let noble thoughts come to us from all directions. This resonates with the purpose of Samavesh, which is the annual business academia conclave organized by SPJMR Postgraduate Program in Management. I'm Akshay Dakshin Ramesh from PGPM class of 23, your host for today's Information Management Conclave. PGPM is an 18 months transformative journey that is offered to professionals with prior work experience. We are a batch of 146 participants from diverse backgrounds studying across 5 areas of specialization: information management, operations and supply chain, marketing, finance, and general management. Samavesh is the event where industry meets academia and bridges the gap between the current trends of industry with what we can learn from it. Among the 6 series of Conclave, today we are here to officially inaugurate the Information Management Conclave. The theme for this conclave is Applications of Generative AI in Business Transformation. Just as the printing press reshaped technology, mobile and internet transformed humanity by connecting people across the globe, generative AI is here to revolutionize learning accessibility. For future business leaders, the swift embrace of this technology is inevitable. We touched based upon AI yesterday in all of the conclaves, but in this conclave, we will be deep diving into the enterprise business transformation by generative AI. Without further ado, let me introduce our distinguished guests for today. We have with us Pradeep Gullipalli, co-founder, Tiger Analytics; Isha Mohanty, head marketing and communication, Tiger Analytics; Prakash Upadhyayula, executive vice president and CIO, Walters Clover; Anand Subramanian, India leader, GBS operations, Walter Clover; Mandar Kulkarni, director CSA, Azure Infrastructure, Microsoft; Kunal Mathuria, head data and AI sales, Google India; Dr. Subramanian Lakshmanan, principal engineer, Eightfold AI; Samruth, recruiting manager, Eightfold AI; Professor Milind Kamath, chairperson, global management program, SPJMR; Professor Selja Jha, department chair, information management in analytics, SPJMR. Now, let me introduce the keynote speaker, Pradeep Gullipalli, co-founder, Tiger Analytics. Tiger Analytics specializes in developing AI and analytics solution, and it is among the fastest growing business in this space. Pradeep started his career as a researcher building mathematical models and economic simulation of cities. He's a recognized thought leader working with business, non-profit organizations, governments, and educational institutions, making them future ready. It's an honor, Pradeep, to have you here. I welcome you to deliver the keynote address.
It's quite some hype for generative AI. It's given by our friend here. Thank goodness I didn't tell you the joke that was given to me by ChatGPT. Otherwise, we would have lost some of the confidence you would have in whole the generative AI space. But that said, good to see this group on Saturday morning. Thanks for having me here. Along with, this is the season of generative AI, and we have, I'm glad to meet some of the distinguished guests today here who have been working in this space. I'm sure you'll hear a lot from them over the course of today. So, what am I going to talk about? Before I jump into that, I'll give you a little bit more background about who I am and why I've been invited here, so that you get a better context of how I'm approaching this whole space. Right? What's my vantage point to this? Because this is an ocean in itself, and everyone is looking at the elephant. Some are looking at the ears, some the trunk, some the tail. Right? So how am I looking at it? So so my background, right? The first half of my career, I was what you might call a data scientist. I started building mathematical models and simulations of urban places, right? Cities, commerce, housing, utilities, transportation, all of that, so that when policies are made, you can simulate the policy and see what the impact is. So that's how I started my career, and then moved on to saying, hey, can I do the same in the industry, right? For customers, products, prices, markets, marketplaces, and so on. And then we started Tiger Analytics. This was about 11, 12 years ago. It'll be I'll talk a little bit about Tiger. It's important for you to understand where some of the observations I've had in this space come from. So what we do, we develop AI and analytics solutions for enterprises today. Everyone's sitting on lots of data, and there's a huge opportunity to get more efficient, right? Become more effective, and that's what we do, right? We build these custom solutions for enterprises. So we are about 4,000 people. We work with 100 odd clients, generally doing quite well, right? We're probably the fastest growing company in this space. A lot of good things happening, a lot of impact and such. And what I'm going to talk about today comes from working with these 100 odd clients that we do today, how they're viewing generative AI, right? What are they doing? And these cut across verticals, across functions. Each one is at a different stage of their maturity. And this will give you a sense of what is this space today looking like on the ground, right? Away from the glitz of what you read in the media, what does it look like on the ground, right? So that's what I intend to share in conversation today. Being in an academic institution, we need to start off with some definitions, right? But being from the industry, I'll keep that part pretty light. Um, what's the AI that's been going on so far, right? How would you think about it? And no, I'm already differentiating it from data sciences and analytics. It's got more to do with analyzing data and predictions and all of that. That's an ocean in itself. But the term AI in the industry has generally been used in the context of cognition, right? Can I understand some pattern, right? Can I meaning as an algorithm, as a technology, see things, detect things, right? Can I hear a speech or any audio signals? Can I read, right? It's all about cognition, right? So this is how AI in general is used in the industry, right? Let's not go into the true definitions and all that, right? The widely accepted definition of what an AI would do, right? Cognition. Now, what's generative AI doing? Now we're moving from cognition to creation. It's not just about understanding a pattern, but it's about now reasoning. Not about just seeing, but based on that, can I design something, right? Can I, not just hearing, but can I actually converse, like talk to whoever I'm listening to, right? Same, we're not just reading, writing. You get the feel for this, right? And we all know this, but just get now we have put everything in perspective. Going a little bit more, right? What are all the kinds of cool generations that are happening today? Code, right? Generative AI tech is able to write code, able to write text from essays to poetry to songs to whatnot, not jokes yet. A speech, right? It's able to talk. Text to voice to voice translations, all of that. Images, creating completely new images, looking at what based on what it's learned by looking at millions and millions of images available to it. Image editing, all of that. Creating 3D representations of things that it's never seen. Video editing, all of that, right? All of this is fair game, and there's a lot of work happening across this board, right? So now coming to what's happening on the ground, right? With all of this, is all this cool technology available? Are these just toys at the moment? How are businesses actually benefiting from this on the ground? Like which of these are they able to really work on and get value from based on where one is right now? So which industries are benefiting from Gen AI or can benefit from Gen AI, right? If you were to ask that question, our good friends at McKinsey did the research and they put this out saying, high tech, yes, makes sense, right? Technology, software development happening, so great. Banking, yes, no, I can think of use cases: life sciences, pharma, education, telecom, healthcare, insurance, media and entertainment, advanced manufacturing, consumer goods. Now, if you're wondering why is this guy just reading a list, I can get this from the internet. Trust me, there is the 3 more pages of this list. The point I want to make is there is no industry that is left untouched by this topic. Right? It is relevant for everyone. Right? Depending on one's maturity, there could be some could benefit a lot more. There's like right, and others less so. But from the perspective where each one is, there is definitely value that one could gauge from this tech. Now we said that all industries can benefit. Is it not equally? Now what are the functions in these industries where we are seeing more action, right? And here we start to see some patterns, right? Some functions, there are clear use cases coming up, no value being proven, others not so much. But if I were to pick the top 3, 4 things, I'd say number one, right? Anything to do with the customer, customer experience and operations. Several use cases here. Sales and marketing, and I'll talk about some of those. Software development, this is getting completely disrupted, right? The space because of what Gen AI is bringing to the table. And finally, R&D and innovation niche use cases. I'd say probably today 80% of the use cases will fall in these 4 functions. There, of course, you can go into other things like people functions or let's say a supply chain and so on. There are use cases there, but like I said, if you were to think of what are these 4 key functions where we are seeing use cases, it will be these 4. Now again, there are some similarities between the use cases that exist across these 4, right? So what are these broad themes that exist? It's these 3, right? By and large, I think 90% of them can get covered here, right? Personalization, right? Productivity, automation, innovation, insights. Right? Now let me go into what I'll do now, right? We'll go into each of these in a little bit more detail, and I'll start bringing in examples of what organizations are doing. More specifically, these are examples of how we've been working with various organizations in this space. Like, these are real life use cases which are in flight, right? Which we are involved in. All right, so I can attest to that all of this is real and not right, something which is imagination created by Gen AI. So, starting with personalized experiences, this is something all of us have been spoiled already, right? We need whenever we look at any of our, we log into our e-commerce site or a social media site, if something is off, we say, hey, why is this being recommended to me? It's not even relevant to me. Hey, at some point, it changed that, hey, it's not like there's one marketing for everyone or one recommendation for everyone. It went from that to segmentation to now a segment of one. And hyper-personalization is something which we all take for granted. And this is just being taken one notch up by generative AI. Right? Let's talk about some use cases. The first one is personal assistants. Right? So you are going about what you would normally do, but now that you could do better using a personal assistant. Right? Whether you could be a healthcare professional who is trying to diagnose something, and you could have an assistant which is reading the signals on the ground and suggesting possible diagnosis, like those kind of things. Like whether you're shopping or banking, several use cases, right? So we're working with one of our clients. This is a real estate platform, right? So they have listings of all the houses that there are, and then you can go and search for it, and then you have. I'm sure all of us have looked for properties to rent out or buy. In India, it could be the equivalent of a housing.com or a Magic Bricks and so on, right? How do these work? You'd say, hey, I want to something in this area, 2-bedroom, right in this price range, and it throws up a set of options for you, and then you go look at that, right? Now, how is this being transformed? So uh, what this specific client of ours does is just say it's not about these very specific specs of a house, but we'll also collect a lot more data about, right? And there's a ton of data that they collect, written notes on saying, hey, this house has good ventilation or good windows. The washrooms are small or big, or it's in the corner of a street, it's a dead end, or it's closer to this. I can hear noise from the traffic, or hey, there's this good grocery stores. They collect a lot of information about the property, right, when it's getting listed. And now what you're doing is you're saying, hey, when you go in as a consumer to look for a property, instead of selecting, going by looking at the filters and saying, hey, 3 BHK in this region, you can give it a query, right? Saying, hey, I'm looking for a house in this region. My biggest criteria is it should be well ventilated, right, and should be close to, say, schools, right, for example. Then what we are doing now is we quickly search through all this metadata that's available, bring up the right properties, and then on the fly write a description for the house that is relevant for you. You might not be interested about the 2 dozen other features of the house. No, that's secondary for you. But maybe your primary thing is ventilation, right? In which case, I will highlight ventilation in my description of the house, right? So then that starts, the more relevant things start popping up and speaking to you. And we notice that, again, all of these today are in the test control phase. And whenever we are starting to do this, we notice the average time on market for these properties is already dropped by 10%. That's a good testament to what this can do. A close cousin of personal assistance would be virtual support. The use cases are self-explanatory there. Interactive systems. I'm using this label for a situation where, hey, you are going about doing your job by yourself, and but there's an AI looking at you, not monitoring you, observing you, and it detects that, hey, there could be some intervention here that could help you, right? And then it comes up with a recommendation, action, intervention at that stage, and then makes things easier. The most classic example could be personalized learning, right? In a class of, let's say, 100 students in the class, it's very hard for a professor to be fully understand at what level of understanding each student is, right? It's very hard. But now those kind of things are becoming possible if teaching is augmented with AI, and an AI like a personal teacher for you can have that kind of an impact, right? So those are the kind of things that we're talking about in interactive systems. Probably the biggest disruption in this space of personalized experiences is going to come in customer service. Right? This industry is going to get massively disrupted. So I'll give you an example. Right? We work with one of the largest BPOs in the world. Right? So they have these call centers. They run these call centers for almost maybe a third of the big brands that you might know. Right? So I don't know if some of you are surprised that, hey, all of this, the call centers, etc., are outsourced. They're not run by the brands themselves. So we are working with this, and we said, no, how can, so the first thing they start is, hey, can we completely bring in Gen AI to do customer service, right? So that's where discussions start. It's too ambitious, right? Let's pipe down a little bit. So then we started, right? The first project we started to do with them, the first POC we took them as one piece. Let's take a look at airlines, right? All of us has had our fair share of terrible moments with airline customer service, right? Each one will have their own nuances, fine print, why this can be done, not that can be done. Their policies, each one works differently and all of that. Even the customer service agents, they don't know the entire thing, right? If you look at the fine print, it runs into hundreds of documents, and no one will know all of those fully. Probably no one in the airlines industry also. So when customers call, they go, some of these questions can be answered directly, but for several of them, they go look at what is possible, not, they said, we'll call you back and all of that, right? So we said, the first thing we will do is, when a call comes in, right, we will have this AI, this technology, listen into what this is, what the problem is, and now it's already understood the entire knowledge based on which decisions are made. Recommend an action right away, saying, "Hey, this is what you should be doing," to the person on the call, on the agent on the other side. Right? Now the agent doesn't need to say that, "Okay, let me come back to you," or "Hey, put you on hold for 3 minutes and search and come back." But they're able to make a call saying, "Hey, is this good? Can I go with this recommendation?" Go for it, right? Try to resolve immediately. So we still haven't made that connect where we've replaced the agent and say just the AI itself talks. I think it might happen, still some time away, but the first experiments always start this way, right? So when we started this project, the mandate we had was, hey, if the metric that people have for this was time to resolution, right? That's the standard metric that all customer service use. So the mandate was, can we reduce the time to resolution by 10%? So standard thing, as in how you approach these things, as a test group, there's a control group, and all of that. The test group's time to resolution came down by 50%. It was mind blowing for everyone. Even we didn't expect that this kind of impact would happen, right? So now we are in the next phase. We are scaling it across the entire line of customer service, right? So just you see, these are specific areas where you are beginning to have this kind of an impact. Productivity and automation, right? I need not talk about code generation, right? All of you know about, hey, the GitHub, the Copilot or Amazon's Code Whisperer. Generally, across the board, there are people saying that, hey, my productivity has increased by anywhere from 10 to 50%, depending on what you're doing. So this is a no-brainer, right? So this has now become just the basics of how we do software development moving forward, right? This is a given, right? The way software development happens has fundamentally been changed. So this is going to stay. Content creation, like these were the first use cases, right? So when AI could generate images and write text, so the whole creative industry has clearly been, clearly disruption has happened there. The big players in the space, like for example, Adobe is a big player in the space in the creative industry. They've brought in Gen AI into their suite fully now, right? So designers now need to be able to imagine and prompt it in English, and the right image comes up in which you can edit, again using English, and possibly some design, graphic skills. But that's already happened. One of the big use cases we are seeing here for one of the clients, what we are working on is, can we design the right creatives personalized for you on the fly, right? Depending on what you're browsing, what you're searching, can an ad be created which is just custom for you, the whole creative, right? The image and the text, everything. Then after you're gone, poof, it vanishes, right? It's not used anywhere else. So these are some POCs we are doing for one of our e-commerce clients. Search and summarization. Probably in the same league as code generation, huge disruption or massive use cases happening in this space, right? So what is ChatGPT at the end of the day, right? It's some way a search and summarization problem, right? So there is say this large language model which has learned about everything that's there on the internet scale data, whichever way it works, next word prediction or something. But when you ask a query, it's able to give you a meaningful response, a good response, and you find that very helpful. Now, a very foundational case of like a summarization kind of a use case, right? So one of our clients, they are in the life sciences space, right? So they are a research organization. So now the problem was we think we can benefit from this. There's a lot of research that we do today, but how do ChatGPT doesn't know anything about what we do, right? This is very specific, very unique. How do we benefit? So what we did for them was, can we build a custom large language model, right? So which means all your, let's say, a couple of billion parameters that are there in the model will now get trained to your specific data, right? Because so now now the situation, the state where they are in is they have their own version of like ChatGPT. They call it it's a different, it's the same GPT architecture, but it is that which understands all the research that they have done in the past, what is going on right now, what results have come out, what has worked, what has failed, which understands all the papers that their scientists are reading, etc. Now, every scientist on the team has this the equivalent of the chat GPT for themselves, where they can ask questions and it's able to answer everything. The whole entire knowledge base of the company is at the fingertips. Now, results of things like this take time to materialize, but this is a massive use case for industries. Right? Then the other part of it is document reviews, drafting, etc. I'll not go into all of that in the interest of time. The third category, say innovation. Big strides being made in the generative design space. Drug discovery by design of the right molecules, design of machines, circuits, buildings. All of these are use cases have come up, and generative design is an existing field, but for the first time, AI is being infused into this. These are very niche, highly specialized areas, right, and where R&D teams work on. 3D representations, you can think of various use cases there. Simulation and testing, right? Those of you who worked on product development before, you would have seen that, hey, we write test cases to ensure a product is stable, robust, it's working, it's doing its job. But we know the test cases are only limited by our imagination and imagination of the people working on the product for most part. Now, what we're able to do with generative AI is we are able to write extremely comprehensive test cases. No more couple of dozen test cases. Now we are talking thousands and thousands of test cases for all corner cases. And you're able to build very robust products using this. So this is for example, we are doing this for one of our tech clients, in this whole test case generation part. Connected insights. This is again this is another area that can benefit a lot of organizations. So I was speaking to one of our clients just a couple of weeks back, and they were telling me, Pradeep, this is hey, there is. I speak to this team of ours. They're very good analysts, working on the team, but they know only about that team. They only know about the data that they're working on. They're finding it hard to connect it to the broader objective of the organization. They don't know what is happening elsewhere in the company that could be relevant for them. Some of them are entrepreneurial enough, proactive enough. They go and speak to the team adjacent them, try to understand, and they realize that the person they are speaking to, they only know about their team, right? The same issue comes up there. So how can generative AI help in this case? So a big use case we are working on right now is to say, when someone asks a question about something relevant for them, can AI look at all the data sources that exist in the company, connect the dots there? Because you have metadata, similar use cases have been solved elsewhere. Can you connect the dots throughout and come up with a narrative with data which makes sense for a particular user persona, right? If you are, let's say, the head of supply chain, then you would get a different answer as opposed to if you're in merchandising, right? So this connected insights, this I'd say it's still about maybe 60, 70% there, the maturity of what's possible with this, but this holds no significant potential, right, overall. Right? So yeah, so now you get a feel for the kind of projects that are going on out there, right? Now, where are organizations today on this whole map of, this timeline of using generative AI, right, for to transform themselves and all of that? If I were to, if I were to step through, right, the first part is just saying, hey, can I use, I would label this chat GPT in daily life for the lack of better words. Right? I'm just starting, I'm excited, something new tool. Can I get parts of my job done easily? Right? Chat GPT in daily life. Almost everyone has already crossed this phase, right? Which is good. Right? The first step to adoption. The second one is making it more managed. Can we integrate, where possible, Gen AI into regular my day-to-day solutions or day-to-day apps, tools that I use in my daily life, whether it is GitHub, say the Copilot is a good example, right? Microsoft is integrating a lot of their OpenAI things into their whole Office suite. Google is doing the same for their Google Workspace suite, right? The Bard is getting integrated. So which means for a lot of our day-to-day productivity tasks, you will have these things as part of this thing. Same goes for dashboarding and all of that. So all of this, these are very foundational things which are happening, right? The next, it starts to get interesting at the next step, all right? And which is where things get a bit more custom, and then which is where folks like us get invited and have the maximum visibility. Now you start to think of certain business problems, right? The day I can solve this very innovatively, right? Something which my team has been working on. How do I use Gen AI for this? This is the next step. Now, this is where a lot of the organizations today are. Right? They're saying, hey, now we have seen that how it can impact productivity, etc. Can I start solving some use cases? Right? The next would come. Some of them are moving to the next step, saying it's not just about, hey, one problem I'm trying to solve, but in a connected manner. Can I start looking? Can this cut across these various silos that we have? We start to talk transformation at this stage, right? The next phase. And maybe eventually, right, which is still quite experimental at this stage, is if autonomous agents become more robust and we start to have more confidence in them, then they themselves can go and start solving some problems, right, by themselves. Not all, but enough to make an impact. Where we are today, I would say of all the organizations who have started to adopt Gen AI, you'd say you can maybe this is a good normal distribution you could draw, right? The median is people are beginning to experiment with some standalone solutions, which could prove to them that beyond auto completing an email or summarizing some text in your chat. This can actually solve some real problems, real custom problems for me. That's where most of the things are. So whenever they start with an exercise like this, someone gets a mandate to say, hey, let's do some POCs in this space. Right? So then what do? They go and speak to different stakeholders. And this probably tends to be some technical team, techno-functional team. And they start to speak to different functions and say, hey, what are the use cases you could, are you able to think of where we could use this? Do you have any problem statements? And suddenly they're flooded with 24 use cases that come up and they're saying, hey, where do we get started? Right? Already it's an experiment, and on top of that, this starts to happen. So how would one approach typically in this case, or when we work with them, what we would do is the classic use case prioritization. I'm sure all of you have read about this in your, gone through it in some of your coursework. Very valid, very applicable in the industry is the value complexity framework, right? simple, but one of the most powerful things that is applicable in all areas. So if this is a class you probably missed, you might want to go back and look at those notes again and save it for later. It will come in very handy. Very simple way to think about it: plot all your potential project candidates on a two-dimension, value versus complexity. Value is the impact it could have, possibly the revenue. Complexity is aspects like cost and well, can I actually are there going to be hurdles in adoption and so on. And for something like Gen AI, the regulatory aspect starts to come in. Right? Are there legal implications that I need to be worried about? Are there hurdles there that I need to cross? So you need to start thinking about that. Right? And then when you plot all of this, you'd get a, then it'll start to make sense saying, hey, what are the, for a POC, I don't want to take on something, no matter how valuable, I don't want to take up something that is too complex. So rule out things on the right. I'm probably thinking about something which is low to medium complexity, and the value is medium to high value, right? So you start to pick out some of those, and they usually, the data will present itself. There 25 possible candidates will already whittle down to 3 or 4. You pick something of those, and then you move to the next phase, right? Which is the technical or the feasibility assessment of saying, hey, is this something like this feasible? Because it's a new way to solve a problem. As an organization, do we have the wherewithal, the capability to solve this? Do we have the data available? Is it labeled? Do we have the right data models, the metadata in place, all of that? Then the next step for any of these, how are you going to operationalize, let's say, the whole embedding, or what kind of vectorization you're going to use? Most of these will have a human in the loop kind of a system when developing these. How is that going to work? A lot of these things need to be figured out. Do you have that kind of all the resources required for these, right? You'll need to think of, hey, do you have the budgets for getting a license for some of these enterprise things, or is it something you need to build, right? Like a custom LLM. Do you have the people to build those? What kind of tooling is required? Build, monitor, manage, enhance, a lot of things, right? Do you have the infrastructure, the compute, the cloud to build, manage, orchestrate all of these? So all of these things now you start to look at as part of a technical assessment, right? And then finally comes the responsible AI principles part of it, right? It's so, because a lot of these tend to be more of a lot of these operate in a boxish kind of a thing. It becomes doubly more important to understand this. How important is explainability to you? You probably don't care why a certain ad was shown to you. It's a small annoyance, but you would like to understand why a loan was denied to you, right? That's serious regulatory trouble one could get into. Or hey, if they're using AI for hiring decisions, those are things where AI needs to be explainable. What is the situation for the problem that you're trying to solve? Is the data that you are using, if that is biased, then it can inadvertently start to discriminate against a certain section of people who could be impacted by it. If something goes wrong, who is accountable for this? Is it the person who originally developed these algorithms, the developer in your tech team, the business sponsor, the insurer who will to whom the claims would go, the company who is liable for it? There are no answers, right? And no one has this part figured out. But we need to have a conversation so that the record is set straight for that specific thing. Are you using data you're not supposed to use? Right? Are there this is personal information, or this is trademark thing that you shouldn't be using, and because of which you could get sued later as a company? So these are kind of things you want to a checklist you want to go through to ensure you're in the safe, right? So yeah, and then once you're through all of this, all the exciting stuff starts. You start working on the problem, a new way to look at the problem, right? Do some cool stuff, make an impact. so all of that starts to happen at that stage. So, so, so yeah, that's in any conversation like this. One of the questions that I often get asked is, Pradeep, what do you think about the future? Right? Is this really going to be so massively disruptive that half the jobs are going to get lost, or is AI going to take over the world? Right, these kind of questions, and no one knows, right? Of all people, I definitely I don't have a clue of what's going to happen. 2 years ago, the world didn't have a clue of where we would be right now. Right? There's so many non-linear innovations happening, right? So we don't know from which pocket of the world something big is going to come up, and there will be someone else in some other corner of the world who's going to build on top of that to come up with something disruptive. So that's where we are overall, right? In this space, at the moment, right? But to answer that question, if I don't know how many of you have seen Back to the Future, right? It's one of my favorite movies, right? It's maybe 40-year-old movie. It's a trilogy. Part 3 is bad, but 1 and 2 I would definitely recommend. If you have the time on some weekend. So in this movie, right? So there is our the mad scientist, like Doc Brown, they call him. He's invented time travel, right? And then there's this very interesting scene. It's coming for the first time. He's demonstrating that. Right, saying, and this right. The other friend there, is this guy is quite excited about this, because he has to travel back. He's trying to change the way he was brought up, and how his parents' lives are, and so on, and all of that. Right. So there's this, and then there's this very cool statement he makes at that stage, right? And I think we are somewhere. This is the phase we are in, right? Not someone, right? The world, this whole thing is getting built. We are there watching, participating, using, etc. But we are still waiting for when this thing will hit that 88 miles an hour, right? And then we're going to see some serious magic happen. So we're all that's where we are, and that's all I had to share today. Again, it's a great time for you to be graduating into this new world where what you're going to be doing is going to be significantly augmented by these new technologies, AI, Gen AI. Tomorrow there'll be something else. But it's great that you are starting off with this expectation. Course correcting halfway through is more challenging than setting off with that right frame of mind. So I'm that way. You guys are probably a good time to be stepping into the industry, right? This time. So all the very best for that. Hope several of you will bring in a lot of innovation into the organizations you go into, using not just these tech, but a lot more. Thank you all.
Thank you, Pradeep, for sharing your insights on how generative AI is shifting gears from cognition to creation. On a lighter note, the use case that Sir shared about AI connecting the dots and creating a narrative prompted me to think if I can really get Iron Man back on Marvel movies by asking a prompt. So now, Ashish Singh and Abhishek Shah from the PGPM class of 23 will share a presentation on generative AI use cases.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ashish, and along with Abhishek, I am going to talk about generative AI landscape today. So in the next 10 minutes, we are going to know more about Gen AI. We are going to look at its use cases across different business functions. And towards the end, we are going to look at risks, ethics, and responsibilities of generative AI. So Mr. Pradeep has talked about AI and Gen AI and given us a very good idea. So what I'm going to talk about is where generative AI fits in the entire AI ecosystem. So you have AI, it's like a discipline. and you have machine learning, which is a subfield of artificial intelligence. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning which uses artificial neural networks. And deep learning models can be categorized broadly into two categories. So the first one is the discriminative model, where you try to predict or classify a data point. And the second one is the generative model, where you generate new data points. So Gen AI is the subset of deep learning, which creates content based on the learnings it has from the content it has already seen. Its journey can be traced back to 1960s, where a chatbot named Elisa was created at MIT Labs. But it wasn't until 2014, with the introduction of GANs, generative adversarial networks, that the world came to know about the true potential of generative AI to create high quality content. In 2017, Google came up with a revolutionary paper, Attention is All You Need, which led us to the large language model, or the LLM revolution. 2018, we had seen LLMs such as GPT and BERT getting released. And subsequently, with the applications of these LLMs, we saw the introduction of ChatGPT, Midjourney, Bard that we all see today. So if you see over the last 2 years, a lot of things have happened in this space. So this technology has brought in a paradigm shift in model training. So earlier what would happen was that for different tasks, there would be different AI models, and that would be trained based on the different task-specific data sets. With this new paradigm, what we are seeing is we have a foundation model that is pre-trained on large amount of data. So foundation model is going to drive the use cases and applications today. So the point is to use the foundation model and try to use them in different tasks. It's similar to something saying that if you learn to drive a car, with little effort, you can learn to drive other cars, or for that matter, buses or trucks. A lot of value that currently is being added by AI comes from the non-generative part of it, which is the advanced analytics and its predictive capabilities. However, Gen AI has the potential to add value to this further, to the tune of 15 to 40% as per McKinsey report. Gen AI has use cases across different functions, and as Mr. Pradeep also mentioned, that there are few functions that stand out in terms of the impact or the value that can be added by generative AI in these functions. So he has already talked about these functions in detail. So let me just skim through this quickly. So we have marketing and sales, where it has a lot of applications. In customer operations also, it can revolutionize the entire customer operations. In software engineering, if you look at code as another programming language, then it opens up new opportunities for generative AI to be used in this function. So software developers can use this technology for pair programming. They can also train LLMs such that if they give them text, it's going to output actual proper code. It also has applications in product R&D, and to talk more about it, I invite Abhishek.
Thank you, Ashish. And good morning, everyone. So I'll take you through a small use case. So already Pradeep mentioned about innovative R&D sections where people are working. And I'll talk about one of the R&D applications that me and my team and I had worked a couple of years back. So it was related to the coronavirus during that pandemic, where we were trying to, in silico manner, trying to generate a drug for the SARS-CoV protein. So this protein that you see, it's a protein molecule actually, and this is called the 3CL protease. It is one of the spike proteins that is present in the coronavirus, which allows it to enter the human lung cells. So if I'm able to generate a drug here, for this is called the active site or the catalytic site where the drug goes and bind. If I'm able to block this site, this molecule will be rendered inactive, and as a result, the entry of the virus to the lung cells can be mitigated. Taking this idea and because generative AI we were working in generative AI that time, we tried to apply this in that frame. Coming to the custom LLM model that Pradeep mentioned, if you see, we have two generative models in the system. One is the foundation model that Ashish just talked about, and this is the custom LLM model that was trained. This was trained on 1.6 million chemical entity data. This was only for our purpose which we trained. Post this, there is another target-specific generative model that was trained. So what this was doing was, it was randomly generating few chemical molecules based on the learning it has got. But the specific data set was because of some family which was very close to SARS-CoV, like this is SARS-CoV-2. We had information about SARS-CoV-1. Taking that as the information, we tried to develop this model which was target-specific, and as a result, the whole system got biased towards producing molecules that were very specific to our molecule of interest. As a result of this, and that this was followed by certain other filters, like whether the chemical can actually exist in the environment or not, how feasible it is to make that molecule, etc. Post this, this is what we got. So these are few of the molecules that were generated, and it is interesting to note that none of these molecules presently exist. So we published this paper, I think a couple of years back, it was 21. This paper was published where 31 drugs were found that were very similar, or rather had a very good binding affinity. You see it is more than 90% binding affinity, which is great for a drug in this sense. So this is the power of generative AI that can come in. It's not image, it's not video, it's not content that we see over mobiles. It's something which is actually going to impact the industry, the pharmaceutical industry, for which we are expecting digital era to start. To just give an example of something which is existing, we took another drug. This is HIV protease. This is against HIV protease. Darunavir and Saquanavir are a few of the drugs that is presently being used for this, for treating HIV. We tried this, and these are the molecules that were generated. Again, we have got molecules which were more than 90% structurally similar in the 3D space using this model or this technology. With this, I'll move on to what are we trying to do. By this we see, we are moving towards, I'll say it's a bit ambitious maybe, but moving towards the digital era of drug development. The whole way drug discovery is occurring is going to change, and this will affect the time. Today we need 15 years, roughly approximately 15 years for a drug to come in market. If these type of things, when I say I'm extrapolating, we can in an in silico method, we can generate molecules, we can optimize molecules in an in silico method, we can test it on human digital twins, another technology booming. And then we have automated manufacturing. Wonderful way of digitalizing the whole thing. We have companies like in silico medicine, etc., which are completely based on this concept. They are trying to automate the whole process of drug discovery, and they're trying to create a platform. I was a part of such platforms in my previous firm. So the broader thing that I'm trying to say is, like in the life sciences or the pharmaceutical industry, the product development life cycle is going to get disrupted. The way it works now, and across all different business functions, the product development life cycle will change. The present way it works is this, using some feedback mechanism. But new processes like automated design iterations, swift prototyping, AI-based product messaging, AI-driven feedback and insights in an interconnected manner. So this is an agile-led interconnected system that we see. This whole system will transform to this, accelerating time to market, which comes to in the case of pharmaceutical drug that I just mentioned, and also broadening the type of products that we have, like t-shirt designs. We have generative models which are generating t-shirt designs. So these type of things are coming up. Okay, so Mr. Pradeep already mentioned about some of the risks. I'll go through some in more detail maybe. He had already mentioned that these are black boxes. At least for our example, molecules were generated, we are saying that we will go ahead with this molecule for SARS-CoV. We need to know why. How did the model decide that this is the molecule that should go ahead? So these are a few of the things where we face problems with the current generative AI system because it's not explainable. Accuracy, normally people say that generative AI hallucinates. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. Like, we being humans, we know what we have to say, and suppose if I'm saying something wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. But in generative AI, nothing is wrong. If we give a prompt, give an input, it will give something very nice answer, and it will be like, wonderful. That is one problem here. IP and copyright infringement. Couple of months back, the US authors had filed a lawsuit against OpenAI because they were using their online available resources, free resources for training the model that the GPT was trained on. So these type of problems are something which comes along with this newer technology. Newer technology brings in a lot of risks and challenges. Bias is also one thing I think Mr. Pradeep had mentioned. Based on the training, my model will work accordingly. So these are few things which we should consider while going ahead. Coming to this combination, business and society should work together to bring this together, to make this happen. Businesses control the regulatory compliance, data privacy, transparency. Recently, I think two or 3 days back, generative AI, OpenAI has come up with that Chat GPT for enterprise version. So they are saying that they are providing this privacy, transparency, etc., because they are training it based on the enterprise on which it will work, the way Mr. Pradeep had mentioned. Based on the particular enterprise, this would work. But at the same time, with this comes the societal concern. It's on us how socially acceptable we can make this generative AI, how access and equity would work, how much awareness we have about generative AI, what precautions we should take when we are going ahead with such technologies. So as business leaders, it is important that when we are using generative AI, we are cautious about the tools that we use. And as already mentioned, responsible AI is something which people are going ahead with. From the start, we start using it. From the beginning itself, we start questioning each and everything that AI is doing, so that when I end up with the process itself is explainable. Also, it is important to ensure that the end decision makers are humans. Systems will do everything, but the end decision makers will always be humans at the end. And ultimately, the final aim of ours is to have a very beautiful balance between leveraging power of generative AI while maintaining the human control and oversight over the advanced technology. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you for bringing the conversation.